Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Jake. You can also call me Atrocious, and today we are going to be talking over the market of the One Piece trading card game. Not necessarily like a market watch type of deal, but for those of you that don't know, it has been a long time. We've gotten plenty of subscribers since we did this last kind of video. I'm going to tell you a lot of cards that I think you should be picking up. Maybe not because they're good right now, but especially because I focus a lot on the future formats in Japan. Cards that I see do really well out there before the meta hits the western part of the world or outside of Japan, as well as plenty of other cards, you know, really good cards that have seen a huge decrease in value. And I think you should get them for the eventual when that color gets good again. You could get those and be ready instead of paying out over pocket. We've done this with plenty of cards before, like Hiyori. I remember when I recommended Hiyori before she spiked up to what she is now, $15 per. I got mine at like $7-8 a piece. So this video is going to be broken up into two different groups. The first group are just kind of miscellaneous cards. They've never really been too expensive, but there are a lot of cards that I see get a lot of focus in what Japan did in the OP07 format, or even the beginning of the OP08 format, because we've done a lot of content on that format as well. Just cards that I really think that you should be picking up and considering for the future, or maybe even now in some of your decks. The second part of the video is going to be cards that have really dropped in value, and personally, if you don't have a play set of those and you're financially able, you should take this opportunity and get your play set of them now, because especially some of these cards are some of the best cards of that color, and if those archetypes really ramp up back to where they used to be, or maybe the format kind of levels out a little bit, these cards are going to be really good and you're going to want a play set of those. So let's just get into it. The first card I'm going to talk about in the competitive cards that I see a lot frequently in the OP07 and OP08 format is Six King Pistol, this zero cost event. If you didn't check out our latest videos from the Fukuoka Championship Series, this card in my opinion was the MVP in the Rob Lucci's run. Such a good card, one of your typical zero cost trasher card game 3000 power events. Very good, especially in something like Rob Lucci in the CP engine, since, you know, Rob Lucci is running plenty of non-counter cards in the 4-drop Rob Lucci, the 7-cost Jack that came out in OP08, extra Ennis lobbies, and then also geckos as well, the 8-cost geckos that are so prevalent in just about every black deck you play. I think you should get these. They're really cheap. Will they go up over $1 ever? Probably not, but you could find these probably pretty easily, and I think you could probably play them in OP07 format as well. They're not as viable in the OP07 format, but I think you still can play them. Staying on the color black, we've seen this card Isho have a little bit of a resurgence at the end of the OP06 EB01 format in the West, and I think it continues as well in the OP07 format. Just a really good card overall, especially against several decks, including yellow. Yellow's a big one, especially with a Nell, right? Having such a big hand, having that on play effect to trash two different cards can be good in so many situations, and especially if that card sticks around, that Dawn ×1 -3 to the entire opponent's side of the board is so good for when you're a deck that really tries to control the board via cost. So is a really good card. I recommend trying it out in your list, and is something that I think you should think of. Now, with the resurgence of blue decks, this OP01 rare is back on the come up in the Don Quixote Doflamingo, the 7 Warlords of the Sea type decks in Boa Hancock OP01 Doflamingo, even the Zoro Sanji, I believe, the starter deck 12 Zoro Sanji green blue, eyes up this card as something to be able to stack the deck and also play as a blocker. This card has had a little bit of a fluctuation in the last couple months if you look at the TCG player chart on the card, and it is coming back into the come up. So with the new deck of Boa Hancock coming out and the strengthening of the Doflamingo deck as well, I assume this card is going to keep going up. So make sure to grab these, especially if you don't pull any of the SPs that are in the new OP07. I haven't gotten one of those. Staying on Doflamingo though, this Doflamingo from OP04 is a card that also has seen a little bit of fluctuation. It's going a little bit more on the up now at this point. I think that you should get these because any deck that plays these plays 4 of these, right? We've seen this in plenty of different decks in the formats, right? Jewelry Bonnie playing this card. Perona has an opportunity of playing this card potentially, and then also even things like Yamato I have seen this card in. This card has a ton of value, especially after your opponent turns their characters sideways, and is really something that you should consider, especially if you're playing like a Jewelry Bonnie Don Quixote type build, which I think we saw kind of do really well at the end of the OP07 format. I saw a couple different entries from like flagship wins and stuff like that. So now Miss All Sunday, I've been talking about this card for a while, and we've even seen it in OP06, the EBO1 format out here in the West. This surgence of Miss All Sunday in the red purple Lawless, especially with that trigger being able to rest a Dawn ramp and then also draw one potentially in a lot of situations, is so good. It's on the down since it spiked back up at the beginning of the month. It's back down. So honestly, for $2, just throw $4 or $8 at someone if they've got a playset of these that they want to offload. A good card in general, and especially if Baroque work stuff comes back. We saw a little bit of Baroque's buff in OPO or EBO1 and OPO7 with the purple yellow crocodile, although not necessarily a tier 1 or tier 2 deck, probably more of a local warrior type deck. It is pretty fun overall. I mean, I've even showcased videos on this channel because I really love the idea of the deck. Now we've got Shirahoshi here. Shirahoshi is an uncommon back from OP03 and is a really cheap card overall. I mean, it's 50 cents. You can get $2 for a whole playset of these, and you probably already also have some of these because of the tournament packs that were given out during the OP06 format, or since OP06 released. Shirahoshi, a really good card played in yellow, so especially if you plan on playing something like a Nell, you definitely want to pick up these. And I think just a lot of decks, you know, as long as yellow is a dominant color, and especially with the 8-drop Katakuri, right, to be able to combo with this so easily, even the Hiyori actually as well. Shirahoshi's on play effect off of that trigger is such a good momentum builder to be able to filter out your hand and find so many different cards. It's literally a +1 off of trigger. Now Charlotte Pudding, this Big Mom Pirates blue card saw a little bit of play in things like Sakazuki heading into the OP07 format, but this OP06 rare is something that you probably want to get. I've seen this in plenty of different deck lists, a lot of blue decks. This is definitely a really good card, especially as a tech card, especially when your opponent has no idea that this is coming. I've won a couple of different games in the OP06 EBO1 format playing the Doflamingo deck, just because my opponent, maybe playing a Nell, has done a little bit of filtering with their hand. They've got about 9-10 cards in hand, and I play this and they shuffle it back up and draw 5. Especially because One Piece doesn't necessarily have a lot of draw potential as other card games like Pokemon or White Schwartz. Being able to reset your opponent's hand that they've been trying to build up and filter for the late game, just resetting all that work in general can be so good. And also if you're playing against Nami, I guess this is a good card, but don't play it against me because I'm going to be playing Nami, and just don't play it against me, please. And so now we're going to be moving into the group of cards that have just dropped a ton overall. And the first one that we're going to talk about is the Trafalgar Law SR from OP01. This is that 5-drop Supernova Heart Pirates blocker. This was such a prevalent card way back in OP01 all the way through like OP03, really, when Trafalgar Law, that red-green leader, was running amok in the format. This card has been upwards of $30, but now is sitting at a mere $4 market value, and part of that reason is through the idea of different reprints. The upcoming premium booster is coming in, and let me see if I can zoom in on this. And through a specific magazine reveal, we've realized that this Trafalgar Law is getting a reprint, new art in the set. So that's one of the reasons why this card has dropped so far down, and also because it's not really played in the format. But if you're someone that loves the originals, or maybe you want to try to get the pre-errata card, because this card has been errated where it didn't have the like up to clause in it, you might want to pick these up, because especially with supernovas, you can play this in a couple different types of decks. And if Trafalgar Law comes back on the up, this could be a good one to have available to you, especially if, again, you love the original art on there. Maybe you're more of a nostalgic person, but I would imagine that the premium booster is going to maybe drop this down a little bit more. But if you don't have to sweat $4, you might as well get the playset. Now, Queen is another card that I have seen drop down a ton, being upwards of $40, now all the way down to about $19. Queen has continuously seen the down despite having much success in red purple law. I don't know if that has to do a lot with like the reprints, right? A lot of the starter decks were reprinted, so more queens became available on the market. But as I mentioned, coming in Trafalgar Law, it's overall a really good card to play in decks. That Dawn -1 being a 6k blocker, draws 2 and trashes 1, especially against several different kinds of black decks. 5 is a little bit tougher to get rid of than something like the 4s that Trafalgar Law usually plays. So I don't know. I think Queen's a really, really good card. I would definitely have a playset of these, and if you're not fortunate enough to have the starter decks to get your playset, might not be the worst time. I might wait a little bit longer just to see it go down a little bit, because in the span of like a week, it's dropped down like $5 in market value and just even more. So maybe wait a little bit longer, but keep an eye on this. We'll stick to another purple card, Magellan on the Impelled Down, a OPO2 SR that was once like $20, I'm pretty sure, at its peak back in December, the turn of the new year, 14 to be exact, is now sitting at $2.55 on the market. This is a good card, especially with that on play effect, right? If red purple law ever gets hit, this is a pretty interesting card, because we talk about black decks get so good probably at that point. The Magellan is really, really nice because of that, not only on play ability to put your opponent back 1 Dawn, but also when Magellan gets KO'd, right? Especially against black decks, they either have to decide to lose 2 Dawn, which can be really hurtful in the early game when you're at like, you know, the 5 Dawn curve or the 7 Dawn curve, or they just gotta let this 6,000 power character continuously poke. It wouldn't surprise me if this card eventually made a comeback, but especially as OPO2, we've seen some OPO2 packs come back into the market through the reprint. This wouldn't be a bad one to pick up. Now, Kuzan has seen a decline since the OPO8 set came out. A lot of people kind of turning away from Kuzan as a, you know, $21, $25 card. I think at one point in here, maybe even a little bit higher, about 23, close to 25, has overall seen a decline since OPO6's release, now sitting at just under $9. Kuzan, in my opinion, is still a really good card to have, especially when you talk about the 8-cost Gecko card. Being able to bring this guy back on the field, and then especially when big bodies kind of dominate a lot of decks, having that when attacking -4 can be so good. Oftentimes when I see a lot of people play Kuzan and be able to utilize that when attacking effect on Kuzan, they're winning the game. It's got decent synergy with Rebecca being able to grab it from the discard pile. Navy is a good attribute overall, a good typing. So I expect when this card has the potential to come back in the format in full force, it'll be played. Sticking on the Navy cards though, we've got Borsalino from Paramount War. Now, Borsalino has kind of seen a decline with the red purple laws surgeons, because Borsellino, right, can't be KO'd by effects, which is really good into stuff like Rob Lucci and things like that. But unfortunately, with Red Purple Law, it just takes one Gordon or Razemax to be able to bottom deck that character, but still sees a little bit of play, but has taken a heavy decline, sitting from like $50 now all the way at $16. I think the reprint as well of OPO2 kind of having a little bit of an effect on this, but Borsellino overall, especially after Sakazuki's ban, not as many people playing it at this point. So could be another card to play. You can still play this in decks like Perona, right? You can still play it in Rob Lucci, I'm pretty sure. So still has value if you want to take this card to a event. Now this card has really dipped as well. $13 for Katakuri, now sitting at like $3 overall. This 10 drop Charlotte Lindland, although I hate this card, I did say on Twitter recently, go follow me on Twitter at Atrocious Jake if you want, that I really hate this card, but it's a very good card for something like Katakuri or even Charlotte Pudding decks, as long as Big Mom Pirates are a thing. And to be honest, it's interesting how after Pudding, how Bandai just kind of really loves Big Mom Pirates, I feel like, or yellow in general. It wouldn't shock me to see this card come back, because as a 10 cost 12,000 power body, it has one of the strongest effects in the game, strongest on play effects of adding a life but also trashing one of your opponent's life. It's like doing a swing in general on your opponent. I would definitely take the time now to get a play set of these. Now, talking a little bit about Nami, Love Mellow, because of the reprint in the collection that recently came out, the Binder collection, Love Mellow has seen a huge decrease, even though it is still very prevalent in Nami decks. Nami getting a little bit of a surge in OP07 with the Kuja Pirates package overall. And I mean, I remember when this card was like $10 almost in value. Yeah, sitting at just above $9. Now sitting at under $3. That starter deck from Starter Deck 03. Just a good card in general, and one that I recommend that you play with. Also, I don't know, is Boa Hancock playing this card? It wouldn't surprise me if Boa Hancock was, and I think there is viability of playing this card, but I don't know, I think you're playing some of the other events instead. Now, this card is definitely more controversial, which is why I've kind of put it at the end. The Treasure Rare Nami, that one drop reprint alternate art, it's not really a reprint, I guess, has gone down and kind of leveled off in terms of the decline. So if you're waiting this card to kind of hit its quote-unquote lowest point from OP06's release, being like $100 card, I think even higher than that. Was it higher than that? Well, more like $150 when the set released, I think. And now sitting at $55-ish, you'd probably get it at. Now's the time to get this card, the GTA Grand Theft Auto Nami, as I like to call it. I like this card. I know a lot of people hate this card. I think it's cool. I think it's fine. I think it's a cool art. And yeah, I think it's better than the Law, though. Hot take. Now, this is the final card that I'm going to talk about in the video. It is mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing that this card is sitting at $8 right now. I didn't notice it when it's sitting at $7.50, but I feel like this card has just always hit the decline, right? Even after OPO5 released, and you know, Red Purple Luffy was a great card, especially when we saw the OPO6 meta in Japan. This card has just gone down, 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 and especially with secret rares, I think you should kind of hop on secret rares when you can. So go get this card in OPO5, this secret rare. I love this art too. This art is incredible on this card. One of my favorite cards that I have in my collection, even though I'm not at the Gear 5 moment yet in the anime. Just again, just like the Magellan, if something like Purple Luffy ever comes back, also being a 4 Emperors type, right? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if, and this is more of a prediction, but we know that OP09 is going to be labeled as the new Emperor, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if, especially since Luffy is one of the Emperors, and we've seen Marshall D. Tech take black, like we could kind of see this card come back if Luffy maybe is a multicolor with purple. I know the limb is a multicolor with purple, but maybe like through this set, 4 Emperors or Straw Hat Crew get a couple new cards. We could see this guy come in and dominate. It wouldn't surprise me, especially when Black Maria is a thing. Since Black Maria is a card, oh, absolutely. Like, you could get to 10 Dawn so fast with this deck, especially if you have a lot of Dawn minusing effects. But yeah, that's going to be all in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you got some interesting tips on this card. I kind of want to talk about some OP07 decks that I'm seeing in the format, especially from OP07 that you can get a start on if you want. Remember, One Piece Top Decks is a great website to find deck lists. Just click on this one, this OP07 EBL11 when you're talking about the deck list, and through here, you know, you see an archetype, you're like, oh, I want to build Nami. You can click on that one and see this list that was submitted in One Piece Top Decks. That is the Nami. Just a really good. I don't like that this card is in the deck. Hot take. I don't like Perfume Femur in the deck. I know it has a good trigger of draw 1, but like, I don't know. It feels like an Impel Down All-Stars. But yeah, thank you again so much for watching. Hopefully you join us in the next video. Hopefully you like this one. And I'm hoping to get no promises on this one because I know it's currently Thursday night, probably about like 11 o'clock, 10:30-ish. And I've already heard reports that people are lining up at local stores in my area to try to get OP07 products. So can't promise that I'll get a box, but I'm hoping to get one, hopefully at a good price. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later. I'll stop stalling.